Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined today by Kyle Dvorchak, Denny Carter. I'm going to go through the latest news. You may say there is no news right now since it's June 29th, and you would kind of be correct. But there's stuff to talk about. Tim Patrick is being hyped as he is every offseason. Treylon Burks is being hyped. Dalvin Cook received a contract offer from the Dolphins. DeVante Parker received a contract extension from the Patriots, with my note says, just why? And the Jets talking up Izzy Abanikanda. But first, Denny, the NFL is a problem. It's one of the most powerful sporting organizations on planet Earth with a very popular Max television show, Hard Knocks. And been on the air for years and years and years, but they can't get anyone to do it because all the teams hate it. And the show has gotten horribly boring and needs to just go away, to be honest, because it's so formulaic.
It is boring. Thank you.
It's boring and horrible. It's played out. But the Jets, Denny, why might the Jets now? You read something about why the New York Football Jets don't want to do the show.
Well, they have a new quarterback. I don't know if you guys have kept track of this. You guys heard of this guy, Aaron Rodgers?
I have not, actually.
So there seems to be some hesitancy either on Rodgers' part or the Jets' part or both to say, yes, HBO cameras can come into our training camp and film our mercurial is the word I would use. Mercurial is definitely a word that I've used before, as you can see, and our mercurial quarterback, and tape everything he says and does with his new teammates over 2-3 week span, whatever it is. And there just seems to be some hesitancy, and I get it. Like, people can end up looking pretty bad in these Hard Knocks clips.
I believe what you're really looking for beyond pretty bad is, quote, real dumb.
Really? Yes. Bad, dumb, other negative attributes. Hardly ever positive, except if you're the guy who works his butt off and then gets cut at the last minute.
That's the one. The ever hopeful trope of Hard Knocks, or this guy's gonna make it, and 2 weeks later, where he's reading the clipboard and first cut is inspirational linebacker guy.
Right. And listen, buddy, the reason we're cutting you is because you're bad.
It's always because there's just so much more to life than football.
But we want you to know we like you as a person. Professionally, it's actually a nightmare. We can't get you out of here fast enough. It's horrible. But
who we had on Hard Knocks recently? I remember Browns a few years ago, Lions on Dan Campbell season 1, like the first of
I think
Dan
Lions
Campbell's
were last year, apparently. Or no, maybe it was season 1. Was last year
the Dan Campbell experience? Yeah.
Was last year the Jets?
The Cardinals had something going on, but I don't know if they were like a weird Amazon special in the middle of the season.
Thing.
Yeah.
Amazon, the Cliff years. I don't know. Yeah, I can't. Really good sign for Hard Knocks. The three football professionals can't remember who the team was last year.
Well, people shamed me for a long time. Oh, did you see Hard Knocks? Did you see Hard Knocks? And I'm like, I watched the first 2 or 3 seasons, so I know everything that happens. Like, there's nothing.
It was the Lions last year. It was the Cowboys 2 years ago. And I mean, it is funny. Like, HBO, kidding aside, has super high production values, and Hard Knocks has always had super high production values. There's just no way to reinvent the show. There's like no way to come up with new tropes after 20 years of Hard Knocks. Where
I think they found a way. Covered. Get the weirdest, most mercurial, as some people have called him, quarterback in the league on the show. Like you do the Lions, and Jared Goff seems like a very normal, nice guy. Like Dan Campbell, a likable guy, but not one who's prone to conflict or something, right? You need conflict for the show to be interesting. Let me tell you who loves conflict, buddy. Aaron Rodgers. So this is their effort to really spark some life back into the show.
There's a scene with Aaron Rodgers in the new season of Hard Knocks, by the way, where they're just sitting in the quarterback's room and he leans back, puts his hands behind his head and just tells everyone that Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls was a documentary. And they're all
and the media won't tell you that.
They all start laughing at first because they think he's making a joke, and he said, "No, I'm serious. It was a real movie."
I hope that the Jets give the green light for Hard Knocks to come in, because honestly, I want to see RFK Jr. at Jets minicamp talking with Aaron Rodgers. This is something I need to see.
Don't get political.
Do teams have the I don't think they're allowed to opt out of it. Like they can lobby against it, but I'm not sure I don't think they get to override it, right?
There's like 5 teams that can't. There's some criteria every year. Like if they were last the previous year, haven't been on in the past like 3 years or something.
Okay, all right.
So
it's like the rule in baseball I just found out where like small market teams just can't have good picks in back-to-back years or something.
Yeah, I actually have barely been following that too, where they're trying to guard against the small market teams, just tanking and year after year vacuuming up the top 3 picks.
Wow.
Anyways, football news. NFL Network's James Palmer reports multiple people in the Broncos building believe Tim Patrick is, quote, the best football player in the team's wide receiver room. This is friend of the show, James Palmer, who our producer Adam reminded me last year he came on and it was the different coaching staff and they were raving about Tim Patrick. Previous coaching staff, even before Nathaniel Hackett loved Tim Patrick, they gave him a contract extension. He's like one of the coaching staff favorites in the entire league. I've seen chatter that they're going to love his blocking that Sean Payton is. They might love his mismatch potential out of the slot as a big guy, but it's just we're not actually going to be betting on Tim Patrick in this Broncos receiver core. And it's who are we betting on in this Broncos receiver core beyond Jerry Jeudy?
I mean, yeah, I kind of agree that you're not. This is good for Tim Patrick. It's good that he got the bag before he got injured. I think there's some hope for him to be a contributor, but it's hard to even really muster excitement in 18 and 20 round best ball drafts. He could provide the occasional spike week, but it's hard to see a scenario in which Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy aren't fixtures of the offense playing nearly every snap. And then with the draft capital they spent on Marvin Mims, I'm not really sure where that leaves Tim Patrick. I think the more precise or appropriate reaction to this news would be I've been really excited to get Marvin Mims. I thought he was a really good prospect. I think it's fair to say if multiple coaching staffs clearly like Tim Patrick, the front office gave him a really strong contract and he's been productive. He had back-to-back seasons of 50 catches, 700 some yards, all that being constant, it's probably going to be hard for Marvin Mims to be a fantasy relevant player to start the year. As much as I want to be excited about him, he sort of almost starts to teeter back into the Tim Patrick zone of I get the role he's going to have, but you're not going to find him on a single redraft roster. You'll just be looking for deep dynasty bets.
I will say Marvin Mims is the only one of these 4 receivers actually drafted by this, not quite the full new regime, but drafted since Sean Payton was hired, and he seems to fit to a T, the field stretching role Sean Payton has always loved to have, the Ted Ginn role, so to speak. It is pretty good draft capital in the second round. And part of me wonders if one of the crazy things that could happen in 2023, Denny, would be Marvin Mims outproducing Courtland Sutton. But is that insane? Is that classic June 29th thought?
That is classic. We're going to have to put that on a reel of other June 29th predictions that have gone horribly awry. But I'm taking any Broncos receiver over Courtland Sutton. That's my approach to this receiver group. It's just not happening. I mean, Sean Payton has said my guy Courtland's got to get back to his 2019 form. Okay. So we're not talking about 2021 form. We're talking about 4 years ago. That's the form he needs to get back to. He suffered a catastrophic knee injury, obviously in 2020. He's not been the same. I think it's shaping up where we can reasonably predict that the pecking order, pass catching pecking order, at least for the receivers. I don't know about Greg Dulcich where he fits in here yet, but you have Jeudy and then Tim Patrick and then everybody else. I could see Tim Patrick emerging as the clear wide receiver 2 in this offense. How much fantasy juice that will offer, I don't know. I doubt that it'll offer a ton because I'm guessing this will be a very balanced, if not even a slightly conservative offense where they're going to make Russell Wilson make sure he's a game manager instead of letting him cook, which has gone disastrously bad the last couple of years. So, yeah, I mean, Patrick will be fine. I'm with Kyle. If you're in best ball, I guess maybe a very, very late round flyer. In redraft, man, he's not going to be drafted, but he could have some use later on.
Courtland Sutton is the one guy in the receiver core just with basically no offseason storylines or narrative whatsoever, where Jerry Jeudy, it seems like they're warming up to. In fantasy, everyone's kind of remembering that he was like really efficient last year, even with Russell Wilson being horrible. He was amongst the league leaders in yards per route run, and of course compiled, had the best season of his career. Or Tim Patrick does keep getting media steam. Marvin Mims, of course, had fantasy community steam, and then second round draft capital. That is not something you ignore. Like Sutton, like you said, if he can get back to his form from before the global pandemic, that would be really good.
And it was a while ago, if I remember correctly, and he's we're hearing now through sources he's not getting any younger.
No, he's not. I mean, Kyle, is there any hope of a Sutton return to wide receiver 3 relevancy? He was a very good player. He seemed like the kind of guy that any quarterback could have success with before he got hurt, but just has not been the same since the injury.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that concerned me. I thought it was 2020 that was his most recent really good season. Then you look back and like you said, it's actually been one more year since then. I know he graded somewhat well in 538's metrics last year. He was still able to get open. I think he's still a good route runner and still shifty. I'm not sure if he has the speed or burst he came into the league with. And I mean, the fact that the team is a
problem because he was never that guy. He was someone who he was already operating from a low burst baseline.
I think the sort of positive outcome for him is he's Adam Thielen plus at this point in his career, where he's still a really sharp player in terms of his ability to run routes. It's just you're not going to get as many explosive plays. And at his price right now, not really sure I'm too into that. And just the complete unknown of Tim Patrick coming back. Sutton hasn't been himself in a while, and Marvin Mims, when we don't know, my inclination is that people are overvaluing slight edges. Sure, I would pick Courtland Sutton in a complete vacuum if price wasn't a factor at all among the non-Jeudy guys. But am I as confident as the rest of fantasy drafters are that he's going to beat out Marvin Mims in terms of efficiency and targets? Mims was an elite college prospect, frankly, on a yards per route run basis. He's one of the best prospects in recent years, early breakout, productive 3 years and goes off to the NFL. That's all the boxes checked. I'm not as confident as the rest of your home league is going to be that Mims isn't the number 2.
By the way, with the rest of the Broncos, one of you mentioned Greg Dulcich earlier. Not to name drop, but I went on ship chasing Wednesday night with Patrick Crane and Peter Overzet. Denny was invited.
I had some family duties.
Yeah, and I actually did too. And I
I didn't ignore mine.
I had to skip mine, but we were talking about the Greg Dulcich comments, that everyone has kind of seized on, including us, where Sean Payton called Greg Dulcich, quote, a tough evaluation, and then basically said really ominous stuff about him. But then a month later, it was much more positive. Crane's theory is that he just literally had no idea who Greg Dulcich was.
I totally buy this. I 100% buy this.
We really need to come to terms with the fact that NFL coaches don't really know anyone outside of their teams. And I say this as Andy Reid recently had no idea who Jordan Love was.
Who started a game against him at his home stadium.
And he had and the reporter had to prompt him. Stanford? No, sorry. He's been backing up Aaron Rodgers. Okay, that sort of rings a bell. I mean, these coaches, we'll get on to the next topic, but these coaches don't know. They just don't know.
They do not know. I had a closing thought there. Oh yeah, Crane too mentioned how he found out he was going on this podcast next month from this podcast. He was listening last week when I revealed to the world he'd be coming on, and we had not asked him yet, but we knew he was.
I had tipped him to the idea of it maybe making a return in May. So I gave a little foreshadowing many months ago.
He found out from the podcast he'll be here to draft a team sometime in the month of July. ESPN's Turin Davenport reports Treylon Burks is, quote, playing at a different speed in off-season workouts and practices. Guys, Treylon Burks would clearly have a lot of breakout love in a different offense, and he still has some breakout love in this offense, but underdog, he's going barely as a wide receiver 3. I think he is the wide receiver 36 right now. For a guy we were so excited about last year, a guy who posted pretty good numbers through a lot of adversity last year, is now drawing coaching staff hype and praise. I mean, is Ryan Tannehill back under center? Are we way too low on Treylon Burks, a guy we loved coming into the draft? Again, has the first round draft capital, and it was a pretty positive rookie year. We too low at wide receiver 36 on Treylon Burks. Denny Carter.
I don't know if that's too low. I mean, I'm comfortable with that ADP. In fact, I find myself maybe reaching a little bit beyond that. Maybe a wide receiver 30, 32 range. But yeah, so there have been reports. The one by Davenport said that he's reached another speed. He's playing at another speed. There's another one that said he's noticeably lighter, and I think that addresses something key from last offseason, which was Burks'
asthma,
his physical conditioning. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I know that he struggled with the asthma.
Hitting the albuterol, I say, as someone who has asthma.
Yeah, right. And so and Mike Vrabel finally let him have his albuterol, and we commend him for that.
The asthmatics of America find these comments very offensive to me.
I will say, get Burks inside. Do you know how bad the air quality is right now?
I know.
His asthma's got to be killing him.
I actually had a friend who could barely get out of Tennessee today because of the air quality.
Well, this is why another reason every team needs to build a dome, because the future is not one where we're going to be playing sports outside. Sorry, folks.
The Titans are building a dome, by the way.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, they actually
are. Good. Every team needs one.
Retractable. That's so they can host 100.
Why would you ever retract it? Don't let that sun inside. The pollen,
no sun, terrible. No wind, no nothing. Just give me the dome. Anyway, Treylon Burks, I think, is interesting as a potential target dominator in the Tennessee offense without much target competition. And these reports have been really good. Last year at this time, the reports were really bad.
They were like universally negative. Kyle, when I say Treylon Burks, wide receiver 36, what do you think?
I have him slightly ahead of that in my best ball ranks. I'm not going over my skis because I think there's there's clearly risk with Will Levis showing up and the offense gets significantly worse. Even on, I think, what is a minute chance that he makes it better, it probably will be with creativity and rushing, and that won't result in more passing output necessarily. And I think that's a pretty slim chance given the spotty profile he came in with, and the fact that Ryan Tannehill has been above average to elite efficiency in every year in Tennessee. It has slowly trickled down. I think his weapon's getting worse, and defense is getting to adjust to that style of play that he has partially been a reason for the ding in his efficiency, but he was not even bad last year. So, I mean, I'm pretty excited outside of that sort of small end chance. And I don't think we see it, frankly, because it's a really well-coached team in a division that I still find to be rather weak. And they got the first percentile outcome at quarterback last year, which is Tannehill gets hurt, but then they turn out to have really just unplayable non-NFL caliber backups. They were still in the playoff hunt until the final week of the season. So I think we get the full suite of 16, fantasy relevant games of Ryan Tannehill. And as you guys said, does anyone know the third and fourth receiver for this team? Actually, Can anyone name even the second? I can name you all three, but
I think the second is the man they call NWI. Is he still on the team?
I think so, but I had a different one in mind for a second. Actually.
Nick Westbrook Akinya is who I am talking about.
And they have Racy McMath.
Oh, we all know about Mr. Kyle Phillips, who might be their number one, actually.
Kyle Phillips was my thought for number two, actually, but it could be an NWI. And I think Chris Moore is their last guy. We have to really mind meld to round out their top four guys, who should all see snaps, but they will not be earning targets on those snaps. I mean, maybe we get some sort of breakout from Kyle Phillips. Chigakonko is super efficient, but he's not a target dominator. I think this is a very reasonable spot to be this guy could really be top five in target share weighted opportunity. Yeah. Even if it's an offense we're not super excited about. Like I said, I think the efficiency as a passing team has been and should continue to be there.
Treylon just looks like a tier jumper to me. Wide receiver 36
I like that.
Just strikes me as very, very bearish. But I understand where the bearishness is coming from, but an overreaction.
Yeah.
Someone, I think NFL Network, has reported that the Dolphins have offered Dalvin Cook a contract. He has not signed the contract. The Dolphins actually have $13 million in cap space, so they probably could make a Dalvin Cook contract happen. I mean, what are our thoughts on this, other than it would probably be very bad for players that we like a lot, namely Devin?
Yeah, I'm so unexcited about this. I mean, on multiple levels. One, Dalvin Cook has fallen off tremendously in every measure over the past two seasons, especially last year. The Dolphins are certainly the kind of team, and Mike McDaniel's the sort of coach who's not going to sign Dalvin Cook and then say, oh, yeah, he's our workhorse. He's our 3-down back. He's going to rotate. He's going to rotate with Jeff Wilson, with Mostert, with A-Chain, with the guy they sign off the street on September 1st. I mean, it's going to happen. So there's, Dolphins fans, I don't think should be excited about this at all. And certainly fantasy managers, because this definitely spoils an otherwise, pretty enticing backfield. If you can get it right, I think there is some value to be had here.
Spoils the Dolphins backfield, and just wouldn't be, if we're hoping for more fantasy relevant players, it would not be a good landing spot for Dalvin Cook himself. What is your take, Kyle?
Yeah, I think it would work out efficiency wise for him. And at this point in his career, let's probably do what he wants. I'm not sure he given his severe injury history, which supposedly is what hampered him last year, even though it wasn't costing him swaths of games. And it's something, the shoulder issue that's been nagging him for years, supposedly, that's probably what he wants, is 200 carries and try and climb back to one of the more efficient running backs in the league. Can that happen at this point in his career? I'm not sure. I think Miami would be the spot to do it that way. But I'm even kind of dubious of this claim that they made him an offer, because he's been on the record talking about specifically calling out Miami, saying their rushing scheme would work really well for him. He'd be a good fit there. They offered him a contract and he doesn't sign. So
it must just be all incentive based and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was going to say either they lowballed him, in which case he didn't take it. I'm not really, then I don't think this is much of news. Or I could also just see this being a part of his agent being everyone wants Dalvin Cook. You guys, you got to make offer. Get your offers in. Hurry. But I don't think this moves the needle for me on picking his landing spot out much.
He just seems like someone who needs to wait to training camp, and for someone to get injured or a coaching staff to be oh, never mind. We need a better running back.
Javonte or Breece aren't coming along as expected. He could land in either of those spots very reasonably.
Man, he should just go to Denver immediately. No offense to Javonte Williams, but he should go to Denver immediately. I'm scrolling through the teams. Dallas looms as a fear and a concern for our magazine cover guy, Tony Pollard. Tampa Bay Bucks, if he's truly desperate, but I don't really know what the motivation on their end for that would be.
Yeah.
I could see the Panthers getting weird. They just need more talent. The rookie quarterback would maybe help the evaluation. The Falcons, they're always looking for more running backs.
Yeah, right.
I think the Bengals, if they can't come to a resolution with Mixon, are a Fournette, Hunt, and Dalvin, depending on how much of a pay cut relative to Mixon he'd be willing to take. But that all is kind of contingent on what they do with Mixon. And it's been reported that Mixon just has to take a pay cut. That's what The Athletic was kind of purported. I'm not saying they're saying it's fact, but it's the direction it's heading, is that he just kind of needs to get less money, because otherwise they feel the money is spent better elsewhere. So
see that's interesting. Dalvin Cook in Cincinnati, at least from a usage standpoint, if they use him like Mixon, then he'll get everything. He'll get the green zone stuff. He'll get the most of the targets out of the backfield. So I would be much more interested. The Dolphins, man, it's just a nightmare scenario fantasy wise.
Dalvin's efficiency has declined, but even a declined Dalvin Cook efficiency is probably more efficient than what Joe Mixon usually does, at least on the ground. Maybe not as a receiver. The Dolphins could really boost his efficiency, I'll say. And they have to decide basically how much they still like Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert, because we know Devin A. Shane's going to have a role after the
draft. They gave both of them 2-year contracts with
That's right.
$1 million or so guaranteed, and they can both play special teams. To the degree that you can what may ultimately be your second and third string running backs, I do think they like them.
So it'll be interesting. Very, very interesting is the New England Patriots, for some unknown reason, signing DeVante Parker to a contract extension. And this might just be some sort of weird salary cap sorcery. I don't understand, but this I don't know if I've ever seen a more just why move. Who was clamoring for this? Who and anyone on planet Earth thought this was necessary to extend DeVante Parker, as I see Denny getting ready to be incredulous. And but they supposedly are still in the running for DeAndre Hopkins, but it seems very hard to believe after giving DeVante Parker a new contract.
I do feel in my gut, I feel this is Bill Belichick saying, you want me to sign DeAndre Hopkins? I'm going to award a massive extension to a guy who, just comes out of nowhere and claims the extension. Are you triggered? Are you triggered, folks? And that's
yes,
sort of,
I am.
I am. Yeah. I mean,
you.
I actually felt bad for the first time in my life. I felt bad for Patriots fans yesterday because I do think, I know. I mean, look, I think that they're starting to finally come to terms with latter day Bill Belichick just not being a good roster builder.
Oh man,
he's not. He's really, really bad at it. And
every time he does something, people get in my mentions like are complaining about how high I still had him in the GM rankings, but I think it was like 8th or 9th.
Listen, he had Tom Brady to save him for a long time. Doesn't have it anymore. Doesn't have him. He has Mac Jones. I don't think Mac Jones is Tom Brady. This is my bold take for the day. And I think that this Parker signing is just sort of a confirmation that like the league has passed him by, is what I'm saying.
We've gotten that confirmation like a few times in the past few years too.
No way. I mean, Matt Patricia.
You got to do some editing that article. Get him.
Matt Patricia.
You see this move, you get him down to 12.
Matt Patricia just wasn't given a fair shot.
Oh,
wasn't given a fair by the media or the players. A bunch of whiny little players. The quarterback can't stop yelling and maybe listen to the plays. Ever think of that, Mac?
Yeah. Did they? Is the question? No. Parker had a good 3 or 4 game stretch in 2019, and since then it's not been good. So I don't really know where this comes from, but I guess the contract bros are in my mentions saying this means that Parker is guaranteed, 140, 150 targets, and he's going to be the alpha wide receiver 1. I mean, there's just no way that's going to happen. But it's nice. Look, that's a nice dot connecting by the contract bro Twitter.
Yeah, have fun with that.
I'll dip my toes in contract bro Twitter real quick. Not that the contract makes him get a lot of targets, but more so the actual function of the contract. One, I have seen some speculation. I think there's maybe some validity to this, that this is actually part of a ploy to sign DeAndre Hopkins, which is definitely possible. You can absolutely have this extension, kick money down the road, add void years to it, etc. But I wouldn't say that was the sole purpose of it, because they could have cut him at this point with no dead cap charge to them. It would have been $6 million in savings. If that was really the plan to get DeAndre, that they just absolutely had to have this amount of money, which they aren't strapped for cap space right now, as far as you can not be strapped this late into the year, rookies already signed and stuff. I think this is a legitimate extension, and it includes $14 million guaranteed, which I haven't seen yet whether it's guaranteed at signing or if it's rolling guarantees that go forward. But this is a bit of a legitimate commitment to Parker. Why is it a legitimate commitment to Parker? I don't really know. He was solid against man coverage last year. He was 23rd in yards per route run. He was heavily used deep threat. I don't think he was I know he wasn't elite at it. He was second in the rate of deep targets he saw. There's some sort of spike week juice to him, and this reaffirms the team's commitment to that. But Mac Jones deep threat on a balanced, slow offense. Oh, currently in the Hopkins threat still looms, I think.
10% target share for DeVante Parker is what we have from last year. That's just awful.
DeVante Parker currently the wide receiver 96 on Underdog. And
I have ranked ahead of there. I've been taking him because you can get him and Mac Jones so late. Parker had a 2-touchdown game last year, 150-yard game. I think the offense should be. I mean, there's no way they're worse than they were last year. I don't know if they're as good as they were 2 years ago, but maybe somewhere in the middle, and they're not priced like that. But that doesn't excuse this contract. This is insane.
I am very much looking forward to DeVante Parker catching 2 touchdowns in week 1 and having people come into my Twitter mentions and say, this is why they gave him $33 million, because he scores touchdowns. The guy scored 1 touchdown last year. I just want to get out ahead of this in case he has a big week 1.
Real quick, this is not a comment or question show. We have a user asking a question. Since it is 4th of July weekend, what are the minimum amount of best ball drafts one should do to prove how American they are this holiday weekend?
That's a valid question. I would say if you truly love the country, you will do 0 best ball.
Oh, come on.
No. I think it's like buying a wedding ring. It's 6 months of wages, whatever that is for you. It's 6 months of.
Jeez.
Denny is right. If you really, really do love the US of A, you need to be out there just like saluting flags.
You know what you'll be doing? You'll be doing what the lady in my neighborhood does, which is to put a small American flag in everyone's yard on the night of July 3rd. And so she's not grinding best ball drafts, I can tell you that.
You need to accidentally be shooting Roman candles at passing by cars. And that's what you do on the 4th of July weekend. You don't do best ball. So to answer that question, I know we had a topic on Izzy Abanikanda. I don't know if this is worth talking about.
Well, I just real quick.
Well, I'll say it. Okay, let me say it then.
Okay.
The Athletics' Zach Rosenblatt writes, the Jets really do believe in Izzy Abanikanda's ability to contribute right away. Denny, what, if anything, does this mean?
I mean, I think that this probably foretells that he is going to be the lead back if Breece Hall is out. Now, when I say lead back, it could be just barely the lead back. Okay, it could be the lead back in name only, really. But he is an explosive player. We talked about him before the draft and how his college metrics went, really popped in every way. Our former money counting colleague Patrick Crane
cutthroat
loves old Izzy, and I from a zero RB standpoint, I saw this report and I said noted in the old brain that Izzy could be RB2 if Breece Hall has to sit out for the first, I don't know, week 2, 3, 4, whatever it is.
Very interesting. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Izzy Abanikanda. He has been getting a steady drumbeat of hype, so they do like him. He will be a part of any committee, even if Breece Hall's knee heals up just fine. We will be back after this to talk to some players that we're going to need some more information on in training camp. But first, just a reminder, Sunday mornings mean MLB leadoff on Peacock. You can live stream games all season long. And this week, 2 of the bigger surprises of the first half of the season square off when the Twins take on the Orioles at Camden Yards. Catch the showdown at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. Again, that is exclusively on Peacock. And just to be clear, when it comes to being a big surprise is that the Twins are so bad yet again. And Denny and Kyle wouldn't know about this, but every year the Twins look like they have one of the better 26-man rosters in baseball. And then every year they're in
We all know
crisis.
the size of a baseball roster. Yeah. You didn't need to say it. You knew it.
They're always
Denny,
in complete crisis.
Play my favorite game. Who's your favorite Twins player?
Oh,
come on, Denny.
Oh,
come
yeah.
On,
hey, you know who it is, folks? It's Bruxton.
Oh, come on, man. Are you serious? Is this a bit? Byron Buxton.
Buxton.
The fellow's name? Byron Buxton.
Sorry.
Do you know any pitchers on the Twins?
No, God, no.
Well, have you used any Twins in DFS lately?
No. I only play the best plays.
All right, there you go. The Twins' offense is disastrously underperforming, but surprised you haven't used Sonny Gray, maybe Pablo Lopez.
I was gonna say the wrong name. Is there a John Gray pitcher out there?
There is. He's on the Texas Rangers.
So
I've been thinking of the Rangers this whole time. Literally everything you said, I was thinking of the Rangers.
Come on. John Gray on the Texas Rangers, not the Minnesota Twins.
So I stacked the Reds and Orioles for like 3 straight days, and nothing happened. What? I want my money back.
You stacked the Royals?
No, the Reds and the Orioles.
I was like, what?
I thought that they were too, go get them high school.
Well, they were. One of those games really popped off. I thought it was like 11-9 or something. You couldn't make any money out of that.
I'm gonna have to look through my history.
Anyways, June 29th, training camp is a month away. No new data points now for the next month because the players are not practicing. They're not really talking to the media. Things will be kind of static for the first time all offseason. But there's some situations, even though now we've got a lot of information on most of these guys, we've got some coach quotes, gotten some practice observations. There's just still a lot of guys where we need more information. Their ADP might seem settled, but it becomes clear in training camp they're being used a different way, or the coaches do a 180 with their comments. Things could change. I just want to talk about some players we need more information on. And two, it's frustrating because we want to believe that we've got it all figured out and we're smart enough to discern. But a lot of times there's just situations every year where you are not going to know. I mean, you might not even find out in training camp. You just have to wait until week 1.
Mm-hmm. But
where you got to wait till training camp until there's some actual live hitting and practices to figure out what's going to happen And who wants to go first, Denny or Kyle? Who's a player that you want to get more information on? We'll go with Kyle. Who's a player you want more information on this summer in training camp?
I am really curious to see what I'm going to call it for now, the non-Kamara split of the Saints backfield. I believe Kamara's trial starts on like July 31st. So there's a real chance of suspension. And even if not, frankly, like last year we saw his third down usage drop. We saw career lows in rate of receiving snaps played in the slot and out wide. Like really started getting used like a between the tackles banger as far as Kamara last year to last year. He was just a different guy. And then he was less efficient between the tackles. So unsurprisingly, don't use Kamara like this. This isn't that hard, but maybe it's just the sign of him being a player in decline. So suspension is more so what I'm curious for in the split being between Kendre Miller and Jamal Williams. But frankly, I think there's just a chance that Kamara is on the down and they do give either one of these backs more work. So I want to know, this falls in line with what Denny wrote about. I think you published it 2 weeks ago or a week ago.
Yeah.
The boring guys. The boring guys. I, as a Zoomer, cannot stand drafting, but Jamal Williams, loved by his teammates in Detroit, actually is a good pass catcher. We didn't see that at all in Detroit, but he was a really good pass catcher in Green Bay. One of PFF's favorite pass blockers as a running back every single year. He could really step up for a lot of work in the absence of Kamara. On the other hand, Kendre Miller, they spent a lot of draft cap on him. I thought he was a solid running back prospect. So if we get any sort of intel on this as training camp moves on, like I'd be able to really go all in and like start taking whoever the supposed winner is well above ADP.
Yeah, I mean, my piece is called why I'm drafting boring running backs this year. And Jamal Williams strikes me as not a boring guy at all. Like very interesting.
No,
very
quite the opposite, actually.
Yeah, he's probably the most interesting player in the NFL. But as far as production goes, the way he earns his fantasy points and whatnot, not all that exciting. Kendre Miller is he's fancy. Okay, very fancy. Has all the metrics going for him. It's cool. I'm trying to lean toward the boring this offseason. And in doing so, I think that I will, unless circumstances change, unless we start getting reports that Miller is just blowing people away in training camp, then I'm probably going to lean toward the veteran here in Williams.
I think you have to lean towards Williams, where Kendre Miller, I mean, as you guys alluded to, third round is like real draft capital for running back. I mean, they guaranteed Jamal Williams money for next season too. It's just hard. It seems like in terms of running backs, that's just like a very real commitment. Like you're pretty lucky to be a 28-year-old running back and you get guaranteed money for beyond one season, unless you're like one of the top 8 or 9 backs in the league, which Jamal Williams is not. And I think both will be used. So I do think this is a reaction, not to just Alvin Kamara probably getting suspended, but they got caught so short in the backfield last year. They had no depth whatsoever behind Alvin Kamara. They don't want that to happen again. They don't want Alvin Kamara to take all this grinding between the tackles carries when he's not suspended, because as we saw, that's not a recipe for success for Alvin Kamara or the Saints offense. That's never how he's had success. So Kendre Miller will probably get on the field, but it's really hard to see when it comes to like the early down touches. I bet it's like probably 80-20 in Jamal Williams' favor, which that could be enough to hurt Jamal Williams, but it's not enough to prop up Kendre Miller. But I agree.
Kendre was also dealing with a knee issue. I think it's something lingering from college, dealing with a knee issue. And I think he just completely sat out like OTA's mini camp. They say he's going to be fine for training camp, but like, even if he's just missing a little bit of time at the start of it, like that could be like the opening for Jamal Williams, just completely shut him out.
Right.
Denny, who's someone you want more information on in training camp?
Yeah, I want some info, some intel, if you call it that, on J.K. Dobbins. I need to know more about J.K. Dobbins in this new look Baltimore offense. Some recent headlines: J.K. Dobbins missed mandatory minicamp with contract related issue. He wants more money, as do a lot of running backs, and really hard to see them capitulating and giving him more money, honestly, especially after the major knee injury in 2021. Yeah, I wrote earlier this season in a piece about running backs who excelled in the last half of the year. I mean, J.K. Dobbins. I'm not going to bore you guys with the numbers. I was going to, and then I decided not to. So you're welcome. He blew it out of the water as both a pass catcher and a rusher in the season's final 5 weeks. Like, he was like elite by every measurement during those 5 weeks. And so if he can carry that over into an offense that is supposed to be, according to Todd Monken, the new OC in Baltimore, supposed to be quicker and is supposed to, now this is a big supposed to, but target running backs more. I don't know if that's really in Lamar Jackson's bag of tricks, but so I'm very interested, especially the way I'm drafting my teams, taking a lot of wide receivers and tight ends early. If I can get like a J.K. Dobbins in like the 4th round, he's going in the 3rd, 4th right now. I'd be all about it. And I know that's the dead zone, but I'm also trying to convince myself that sometimes it's okay to go in on the dead zone.
He's going more like the 5th round, apparently. He appears to be the 57th overall player on Underdog, which is interesting. He does seem like someone who can get a lot more expensive once the camp reports begin flowing, for sure.
Yeah.
Because, is Justice Hill really going to be like the pass catching back? I mean, I don't think that's like a thing that's going to happen. It's not going to be Gus Edwards. I don't think it's going to be this time it counts for Justice Hill. As Denny said, he was basically a rolling ball of butcher knives as a runner, and he still makes the most sense as the back to catch passes. So J.K. Dobbins, the guy we already like, will be very, very. We took him. He's Crane approved, by the way.
Yeah,
we took him last night in our ship chasing draft. I couldn't believe Pete and Crane approved of the pick. I thought it was gonna be one of the first ones where like they brought out like the laugh track basically. I was getting jeered and hissed by the ship chasing commenters, but apparently it was a very kosher pick.
And also just from a narrative
every pick you make.
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
it's like the Zoomers are gonna bully me, guys.
Yeah, they tried. They failed. They didn't even try. They don't have any attitude. They don't have any edge.
No, they have no dog. The narrative part here is that J.K. Dobbins wants the damn ball. Like, he has been explicit about, like, I want to be the guy. I want to be the primary lead back. And hopefully Todd Monken is a guy who listens. Hopefully John Harbaugh is a guy who listens to stuff like bluster like that, and we get Dobbins with a bigger workload.
Something I want to see, something we talked about on the show on Monday, Denny, with the Indianapolis Stars, Nate Atkins, just how the Colts are actually going to deploy Anthony Richardson. And maybe this actually isn't that burning of a question because we know he will be allowed to run. Nate basically said they don't want him to get hurt because then they don't want to lose that evaluation time, but that they understand that they can't like really rein him in as a runner. That's going to be a big part of his rookie year value. But he also said they basically spent the offseason practices like throwing the kitchen sink in Anthony Richardson. And the whole narrative, of course, is that he's nowhere close to being ready to an NFL passer. And to say, though, an NFL coaching staff has him looking a lot more ready than people were expecting, and maybe like a situation where he's allowed to throw a lot more than the offseason expectation was, that could like fry a bunch of ADPs and make the Colts like a really, really fascinating summer situation. And I just really want to see, hopefully we get to see him play in the preseason. I'm assuming we'll get to see Anthony Richardson play in the preseason because I just want to see what in the world they've got planned for this guy because it's one of the more fascinating rookie quarterback situations in recent memory.
Yeah, I loved what Nate Atkins had to say the other day on our show. He said, like, I think this is a direct quote. He said the Colts could lead the league in rushing attempts this year. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised. And I'm drafting Colts as if that's going to be the case. Like, I'm completely out on Pittman. I'm completely out on all the pass catchers. I kind of like Taylor. I like Richardson a lot. So, I'm intrigued by him, and the fact that Shane Steichen is his quarterback as his coach. I'm sorry, I think is fantastic. It should be really good for Richardson. He doesn't come into a situation where he has a coach who has no idea what to do with him, so thank goodness for that.
Yeah, Steichen, who has experience with dual threat quarterbacks, experience with a run heavy offense, and experience with a more pass heavy offense, I do think it's just the perfect man for this job.
Yeah.
Kyle, who's the second player that you need more information on in training camp this summer? As we have some technical difficulties with Kyle, we're having technical difficulties with you. I'm just going to be honest. God is frying your connection because he doesn't want you to talk about. Real quick, while Kyle tries to figure out his internet situation, Denny, who is the second player you want more information on this summer?
So, we have all sorts of reports, some more solid than others, that Nick Chubb is going to be more involved in the Cleveland passing attack. And that, honestly, changes everything, I think, in the running back landscape, because if we can get Nick Chubb in a pretty consistent, not a Christian McCaffrey or Eckler type role, but in a consistent pass catching role where he's running a good amount of routes, where he's seeing some targets, maybe even some design targets to get him into space, then man, I mean, he becomes really, really fascinating as a guy who's going to go after the elites in the game. I don't know how far after. Like, as soon as if we get this information in training camp that, hey, Nick Chubb is catching passes, he is going to catch passes, he is going to be pass catcher in this offense, then we all have that information. So really, the best bet you can make is right now to use that information to get something of an ADP break on him, because as soon as that hits the mainstream, the lifeblood of fantasy ADP, he's gonna shoot up. He's gonna shoot up into I don't even know, until the mid first round. And by the way, I do have one stat I'd like to share with you guys. He's pretty good as a pass catcher. Last year, only Travis Etienne and Derrick Henry had more yards after the catch per reception than Chubb among running backs. I know that was a mouthful.
I was having a lot of trouble following.
He was good after he caught the ball, which you've said, Pat. You said, why not just get it to him 2-3 times a game and let him run? Let him get downhill. And if the Browns are ready and willing to do that, then it really, really changes his fantasy outlook.
Because I'm sure we would know by now if Nick Chubb, we're like an elite pass catcher. Like, we know that he's not, like, that he would have proven that by now, but he's also has never looked like a hands of stone guy.
No.
And it just makes no sense with everything you laid out to not get him more involved as pass. I mean, do we really think they're going to be forcing Jerome Ford onto the field? I mean, I guess maybe they will, but it just seems like one of those narratives that has been trying to coalesce, congeal this offseason. And like you said, it still hasn't. So the discount could still be there. And like you said, if word gets out early in training camp, then all hell will be breaking loose, basically ADP. And that now is the time to get the potential Nick Chubb discount. Kyle, what are your thoughts on the Chubb situation?
Yeah, I'm not sure we'll see much more of the pass catching. So the way, I see the stat about Travis Etienne and Derrick Henry, and I'm like, yeah. And there's probably reasons those guys aren't heavily used as pass catchers, because we've said since the day we saw Derrick Henry step on a field, any pass you throw to a running back, why wouldn't you throw it to him? He's so large, as one would say. And he is efficient after he catches it, but so much goes into what happens before that even if he's the most efficient running back after the catch, he's still almost year in, year out grades pretty poorly in yards per route run. So I'm skeptical that if Chubb will get a ton more pass catching work. I think it will be a small boost, but maybe that's just part of sort of the conceit of this moment of the show is if they really do come out and be like, no, we're making commitment to this. Maybe I will change my priors on that, but that's something we need to see.
Yeah, I mean, the main reason I'm skeptical is this NFL coaching staffs never change their priors, and multiple staffs have decided that Nick Chubb is not a pass catching running back, and that even if they were forced to use him that way, it does seem like they would just rather use Jerome Ford. But there is enough noise here where I think it could happen. We're at the very least, he's gonna catch more. If he stays healthy, pretty much no way he won't post a career high in receptions per game. Now, maybe that will be 2.1 receptions per game or something, but it's just a matter of how big that boost is going to be. And if we get some clues in training camp that's actually going to happen. It is a very fascinating situation. Kyle, as we hope your internet keeps it together, who is the second player you need more information on in training camp?
Yeah, well, as I attempt not to get canceled, can we see DeVante healthy? Maybe even don't put him on the pup list. He doesn't have to be ready for week 1. I'm not sure he will be. But if there's any inkling that he's sort of closing the gap in our extremely cautious approach as just drafting as a whole, as ADP would reflect, if there's any inkling that he is ahead of that sort of that very cautious approach we're taking. He's a guy I really want to be in on. He was an elite runner when we saw more of him in 2021. He was 9th in yards after contact per attempt. He forced the 2nd most missed tackles on the 18th most carries among all running backs. He was 12th in rush yards over expected. And in the very brief amount we saw him last year, it looked like he was on pace to be exactly that guy again. He was in college. He was just unable to be tackled at any point in college, breaking PFF's tackle breaking metrics. So I want to give me some hope. I'm not saying I think we'll get hope, but I think there's wiggle room here in that the early sort of offseason reports were really damning. I wasn't sure what we'd see of him, but we've gotten some more maybe mixed reports since then, I'll say. So come on, let me get excited.
I think he will be one of the hardest players to get more information on in training camp. I totally agree. The Broncos just in general are where the team we need to observe camp with the most, because I feel like we just don't really know how that receiver core is going to shake out, like we highlighted earlier in the show. And DeVante Williams' health is maybe the biggest injury question mark in all of fantasy football. And this thing is, I just don't think we're going to get the information. I'm sure he will begin camp on the PUP list. I'm sure Sean Payton will sound pessimistic one day, optimistic the next. He won't play in the preseason. Peyton will just be playing mind games with everyone, maybe even including himself. And it's just what he loves to do as a head coach. And I totally agree that DeVante is an area where we need – he is maybe the key guy we need more information on. I think DeVante is like, we're waiting until week 1 to find out what's really happening with this guy. And
one other thing is is the plan, assuming, I think it's pretty fair to assume at this point, Javante's not playing week 1. It's if he's maybe playing some snaps in week 2, or if he's going on the PUP list to start the year and then not even coming back after. Is it now 4-game minimum?
It's only 4 games. That's why I think that he only avoids the PUP list if he's playing week 1, to be honest. I think it might be an either or.
Interesting. Yeah.
Now the PUP list has been reduced from 6 to 4. I think it might be an either or with him, where if he avoids the PUP list, it might mean he's ready for week 1. But it's going to be a while. We're not going to find out till final cuts with him, because I think they might keep him on PUP list up until the final cuts, where they have to finally make a decision. And that might be our
let's
first
say he doesn't play.
data point.
Yeah, let's say he doesn't play week 1. It is just Samaje Perine on this roster. After that, it's Tyler Beatty, who was with the Ravens last year, and then Tony Beatty. Yeah, of course, because he's from Mizzou. After that, it's Tony Jones, a former Sean Payton alum, if you want to call it that. But these are practice squad players, and then Samaje Perine, who's a legitimate strong backup. I think there's a pretty big gap between him and anyone else in this roster. He's going to have somewhere between maybe, I'd say probably 1, but 5, 6, possibly even more really high usage games if Javonte isn't healthy, unless they make some change or we get the Sean Payton. Tony Jones just really knows the system well. We're loving how well he knows the system. And this is probably something preseason can help us figure out too, not just training camp. I would not be surprised. I'd be surprised if Samaje Perine plays more than 2 drives during the preseason, but maybe they give that treatment as well to Tony Jones, and then it becomes a little more ambiguous. So you guys know Tony Jones is not good on many levels. So my precious Samaje Perine, I think, is going to be okay in his battle with Tony Jones. I'm completely out on Javonte Williams. I'm not getting burned. I'm not doing this. I'm not playing this game where I'm going to listen to the doctors and what they say about it. No, I'm not falling for it. Say, okay, if Williams drops 3 or 5 rounds below his ADP, okay, maybe then, but only maybe, and definitely not where he's going. No, I am not. But I've been fooled. I've been fooled by this stuff before. And first of all, Javonte Williams is a fancy running back. I'm not into fancy running backs anymore. Samaje Perine is a boring running back. Give me the boring guy here.
Yeah, so Denny won't get fooled again, is what you're saying.
He won't listen to the doctors. He won't get fooled again. He's not believing all these lies. I really thought that was a cutting clip from the Joe Rogan Experience that producer Adam had.
It was. Yeah. Denny, of course, listening to Who's Next before the show. I wonder how many of our audience still knows what Who's Next is. Denny, you know what Who's Next is, hopefully, right?
Well, the album?
Yeah, the Who's 1971 seminal masterwork.
Amazing. Yeah.
Kyle, you should look it up. The last one we'll get to is just I want to see how the Eagles deploy their running backs, which basically is a way of saying I want to see how big Kenneth Gainwell's role is. Because we know in theory Rashad Penny will handle the early downs and DeAndre Swift will be the change of pace back. But we also know those are two very disappointing players year in and year out, both to fantasy managers and to coaching staffs. And we know how much the Eagles love Kenneth Gainwell and how he kept seizing important snaps away from Miles Sanders this year. And I just would not be surprised to see Kenneth Gainwell throw a massive wrench into this. And who knows how many clues we'll really get in training camp. That is one thing I'm so fascinated to see how things really shake out with these Eagles running backs.
Yeah, I hope it is Gainwell. I hope Gainwell does emerge as maybe not the guy, but the main guy, because I have a lot of Gainwell in best ball. So, from your lips to God's ears, or however that saying goes, and sorry to get religious, but look, Gainwell it was used in his first 2 seasons, was used in spurts inside the 10-yard line, like in a very high leverage situation. So I do think that the team sees him as a guy who is not just going to like run, get the ball between the 20s, but gets it in that really high value zone, which is what we want as fantasy managers.
It's what we want, and I guess what we need is to end this show. So you don't always get what you want, and
we love our oldies.
We do. We need the show to end, especially because Kyle's internet. There's a lot of smoke coming off your radiator. The Zoomers don't know what a radiator is, but Kyle's radiator is smoking. That's pretty funny. You didn't close enough tabs, Kyle. You left 69 of them open still.
No, disgusting.
And, come on, yeah, not to get political, but all right. We hope you enjoy your 4th of July weekend. For Denny Carter, for Kyle Dvorchak, I'm Patrick Daugherty. Thank you for listening. We will be back next week.